Did you know that there are 3 cities that Jesus cursed and now are completely destroyed? Quite interestingly, it's some of the cities that he visited most out of any other cities that he ministered to. And this is actually a really, really interesting thing. Normally we would wait a little bit longer to do this, but we're gonna jump into our favorite thing, Google Maps. Here we go. So we're gonna jump into Israel. Of course, here's the world as always. And then we're gonna zoom straight into Israel and go to the Galilee. This is the location in which Jesus did most of his ministry. Now, you're very familiar with this city right here, this town, Capernaum, of course. But did you know the name Corazin or Chorazim? These are the same thing, by the way, just 2 different locations in today. You'll see in the scriptures, some of it will spell it Corazin and some of it will spell it Corazim. They are the same location, same town, same city there. And then also way over here, you see Bethsaida. Now, this location is a reserve right here, but it does have ruins, ancient ruins from the 1st century, from Jesus' time. That was a city over here. So there's like this triangle of Capernaum, Corazin, and Bethsaida over here. And these 3 locations are extremely important for Jesus' ministry. They were some of the locations where he did most of his miracles, most of his ministry. But then why does it say in Matthew chapter 11 this? Then he began to denounce the cities where most of his mighty works had been done, because they did not repent. Woe to you, Corazin! Woe to you, Bethsaida! For if the mighty works that had been done in you had been done in Tyre and Sidon, they would have repented a long time ago in sackcloth and ashes. But I tell you, it will be more bearable on the day of judgment for Tyre and Sidon than you. And you, Capernaum, will you be exalted to heaven? No, you will be brought down to Hades. For if the mighty works done in you had been done in Sodom, it would have remained until this day. But I tell you that it will be more tolerable on the day of judgment for the land of Sodom than for you. This is an incredible, incredible threat, right? And if we know Jesus, he doesn't lie, so it's more than a threat. It's actually a promise. If we look at the different locations of Capernaum, Bethsaida, and Chorazim today, they're completely gone. Many of the locations, such as Jerusalem or Bethlehem, are massive cities today. They are modern day cities with, modern day buildings and a ton of people that live there. At least a relative amount of ton of people, if you can, in Israel. So what happened in these locations? Well, let me show you a few pictures, and then we're going to jump into a video that I wanted to show you from our trip in February. So here is Chorazim. This is the location that I'm going to be focusing on today. We've already talked about Capernaum, and we've already talked about some of the other locations. I've actually never been to Bethsaida, so that's a location that I would love to go to. But here is Chorazim. Right here, we're going to talk about this in a second. They are all gathered around a mikvah, a cleansing pool that is right there. And then here's another picture of us all standing in the synagogue, the 1st century synagogue that Jesus would have taught in. This is where he would have done his ministry. An amazing, amazing place to be. But for us, we see these as ruins now. Every single one of these cities that Jesus cursed no longer exists. So before I jump into that, I wanted to show you this video where we talk about all the stuff that we did in Chorazim when we were there. And of course, we're led by Brandon Robbins, one of our teachers on that trip.
Out of stone, just like everything else here. And that's one of the things I want you to notice about Chorazim. It changes our image of what things looked like. Every depiction we see, even in shows like The Chosen a lot of times, are this familiar wood and stucco sort of thing, but stone is what they have. Stone is what they use. And so, here's a manger, and it's just, I just want you to kind of think about when Jesus is born and laid in a manger. It looks more like that. So if you're willing to come down these steps, I want you to see this. This is a mikvah. So it's a ritual bath, right? And so it's a place where people would come and cleanse themselves, like they would come and enter into the mikvah before they would go into the synagogue. It was a part of worship, right? But it's also a place where people would come and ritually purify themselves, and just in different things. You'll see some of this in The Chosen. After certain things, different, things according to the law, you would have to come in and enter the mikvah. But I just want you to see this. You'll see a lot of these around Israel. We'll look at some very, very important ones when we get to Jerusalem that I want to highlight for you. But I just want you to see this. This is a great example of what this would look like. She was just talking about the mikveh. There's another one over here that you can see, and she was telling us earlier that the horizontal stones that you see on top show you that there's water underneath. They filter the water as it goes in, and so a mikveh would be used when a woman would have her period. She would have to wait, and it would be 7 days after there was no more blood. She would enter into the mikveh, and that would cleanse her after she has a baby. It would be 40 days if it was a boy, 60 days if it was a girl, and then she would enter the mikveh. Pilar.
Yes.
Is this a first century mikveh?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to say something that's probably going to make my bystanders up there want to come down here. This is part of a synagogue. Like when you come to synagogue, when you worship, the first thing you do is enter the mikveh. And then you'll go and you'll do these other parts of the worship. This is a first century mikveh. Jesus preached at all of the synagogues in the Galilee. I don't know if it's this one, but there's a good chance that Jesus entered one of these mikveh. So you might want to touch it. But I think that's a powerful thing I just realized.
And that is totally correct.
Hey, Pilar, what would happen if there was, because I know you said there's often droughts, especially back in those days. What would happen if there's no water?
Okay, if there is no water, like here in the Mikvah, they would go to the Sea of Galilee and go into the water in the Sea of Galilee. As a matter of fact, until today, every Rosh Chodesh is the head of the month.
If you're liking this video so far and you want to continue to see us making videos like this, then we could really use your help on patreon.com. This is the best way to help support us with $5, $10, $25, or even $50 a month if you really, really want to. But honestly, this is what keeps us going, because sometimes YouTube, well, just doesn't show our videos to people, or it kind of is blocked in the algorithm for whatever reason. So we could really use your help if you want to support us right here on The Snipe Life.
This town, Chorazim, was very well known for its production of wheat. I just want you to remember that. That's going to be relevant in a little bit. Production of wheat, farming will be relevant. Before we get into that, though, what do you see? Basalt stone, right? So this is what your house is made of. What else do you notice? Different rooms. It looks like a very big kind of area. And I think something over there talks about this is a wealthier part of the town. So got a much bigger abode here. What do you notice about this? Now, there's a couple of thoughts here, right? Either everyone's 3 feet tall, or there's another reason. What would be a reason for having a short door like this? You kind of hit on it. Say a little bit more. What do you think about safety? Exactly, yep. Somebody coming to attack you. What do they have to do before they can get in your house? Bow. Bend down. Where are they vulnerable? When they're bending down, right? So just things we don't think about, but part of everyday life, especially when you're living in the midst of the Roman Empire, who at any time you are afraid could kill you without remorse. But so one of the things you're looking at here, and this is part of why I love Chorazim, other than just how kind of, I won't say untouched, but you see it, right? You see the archaeological remains, you get a sense of what it really looked like, and there's nothing else going on here. But it just gives you a sense of family life. Now this is really big, and there's a lot of rooms, and there's probably a lot more going on here, but one of the things I think is really powerful to think about is just down there is Capernaum. So, I mean, we're really close here, relatively speaking, right? When I look at a map, I think these things are just miles and miles apart, but you can see down to the water. You can see down to that, right? And so this is a path Jesus would have made. But I want you to think about just these communities and how they're connected. This path you're on right here kind of goes down. It's called a national trail. And you follow this national trail, and there's like a gate up there. You can see it from up top, but you go through a gate. It's a one-way gate. You can't come back. And you get through it. And so I'm on this hike, and we're walking this national trail on this path. And we go through that gate, and about like 100 yards later, it disappears. And we have no idea where to go. All we know is we're walking from here to Capernaum, and we can't come back. And so we end up going down into that wadi and just get torn up, like walking back, and it's exhausting and it's hot and everything. But in that, I had an experience and an epiphany, and so I want to share that with you. I want you to tell me what you see. What do you see as you look around? All right, lots of rocks. Okay, what else do you see?
Rolling hills.
Some rolling hills. What are you standing on? A path. Let me ask you, if you guys standing right there, and I think there's one over there. Look at that bush next to you. What do you see on that bush? A whole bunch of thorns. I want to read for you something. It might sound familiar. Listen to this, Jesus says, "Behold, the sower went out to sow, and as he was sowing, some seed fell beside the road, and the birds came and ate it up. Other seed fell on rocky ground where it didn't have much soil, and immediately it sprang up because it had no depth of soil. After the sun had risen, it was scorched, and because it had no root, it withered away. Other seed fell among the thorns, and the thorns came up and choked it out, and it yielded no crop. And other seeds fell into good soil, and they grew up and increased, and they yielded a crop that produced 30, 60, and 100-fold. You're standing in the middle of the inspiration for the parable of the sower. Now, what is this place known for? Chorazim, what do they produce? Wheat. Let me ask you, how much good soil do you see around you right now? You see a lot of rocky soil. You see a lot of thorns. You'll see a lot of thorns as you start walking down into that wadi. You see a path. There's not a lot of places for good soil to grow. And yet, what Jesus is saying right here is, this is how precious it is. Everything around you is something that wants to destroy the crop, something that makes it impossible. And that's what life is like. Right? Everything around us wants to push it out. But precious is the place where soil can grow. Precious is the place where the seed can take root and the gospel can take hold. And when it grows, it produces something that you cannot even fathom. I just want you to just take this moment and just soak up where you are. And just look at what you see. And imagine yourself at that time, listening to Jesus as he's giving this parable. This isn't just a place you're visiting. This is your life. This is your economy if you live here. You live off this. You know what he's saying. And I just think when you stand in the midst of it, it brings that to life. And I want you to think too about your life right now. And what are the thorns trying to choke the gospel out of your life? What's the path in your life where the gospel just cannot even take root? Where are the places where it's just rocky, those things that life just gets too hard? Things tempt you to look somewhere else other than the Lord for your help and protection, right? We were just talking about in Orthodox communities, the first place somebody goes when they're sick is to their rabbi, right? They go to this spiritual help. Where are those places in your life where you're tempted to look somewhere other than the Lord for your help? And where in your life, or maybe as we've been talking about, where in our communal life are those places where the gospel can truly take root? And what do we need to do to focus on those places where it can grow 30, 60, and 100-fold?
Where are those places that it can grow 30, 60, and 100-fold? Chorazim was supposed to be that place, right? Chorazim was supposed to be a place where Christ came and he did many miracles there. Bethsaida was completely destroyed. Corazin was completely destroyed. These places no longer exist as modern cities because they were cursed, right? And so while we see a modern day Bethlehem, we see a modern day Jerusalem, we see, all these locations that have built up over time. And yes, we still see ruins there, but mostly they're modern cities. These other places were completely destroyed. And it says that on Judgment Day, they're going to be judged even more than some of the worst cities that we can ever imagine. Sodom and Gomorrah. Man, it's a hard thing to imagine that the people of Capernaum didn't accept Jesus as the Messiah, even though they were shown all of these things. And it just goes to show you, in your life, how do you see these things working out? Do you see Christ working on a daily basis, and do you give him the glory for that? Because if you don't, right, and he's shown you all that he can show you, he's done all that he will do. He saved you from your sin. He's done it all. So are you willing to give him the glory there? Are you willing to accept him and say that he's the Messiah? Say that he's the ruler of your life? These 3 cities didn't. So now they're completely destroyed.